times. Both, I did it with an adult audience in a church in Seattle once. I did it with Sunday school kids in a church, and with a couple of Jewish like synagogue groups, and I don't know, wherever else. And I did it several times, I don't know, 2,000, last few years. And I kept on thinking, what am I doing poetry with these groups? I'm an artist. I do visual art education. I should formulate some way to do what Leah, that's her name, does with poetry with her audiences, except in what I'm familiar with, which isn't poetry. I'm not an English major or anything. One of the things I liked about her presentation was that she said she gets audiences of people who don't know anything about poetry, or who don't even like poetry, may even hate poetry, to get involved in participating in it. So I came up with a plan to have audiences do a visual response instead of poetry, collective poetry writing, to have everyone do an artistic response. And I basically followed part of her procedure format for it. And what the exercise is, and everyone's going to do a drawing here. And you might respond the way people respond in her class. Oh God, I don't like poetry. I'm not going to help write a poem here. But here's how it goes. And we'll all need paper. Everyone's going to need a sheet of paper and a crayon. And this is the third time. This will be the third time I've done this exercise. I did it with equivalents of yours. German language and literature students at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma last March was the first audience I did this with. There was a little resistance from 2 or 3 students who initially said they couldn't think of what to draw based on what the topics are, but eventually they got over that mental hurdle and started drawing. Once everyone's done with the drawing, and I know people are going to tell me I can't draw a straight line with a ruler and all this kind of garbage. Everyone will talk about what they've done, and it's a very good and useful learning exercise. How are we doing on the paper? Let me help distribute. I suggested crayons. Take enough crayons here. We can take a few crayons. Your favorite colors await you.
But you have to put it back in your back.
Details. Take some crayons, please. The reason I like crayons for this is many of us, if not most of us, drew when we were very young children. Crayons are great because you can draw expressively. You can really go at it. You don't have very large paper to work with, but still you can go at it as you wish. You didn't get any crayons yet. Let's see.
Are you waiting here, or did you just?
You got some?
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to find it. That's okay. Just one there.
I'm sorry.
Speed things along here.
Yeah, you can take one, but take them from the same box, okay? Allison, did you get some crayons?
Each one. Gold, green. Ryan trade.
Someone had some paper that was torn kind of
Just remember
goofy.
your box, so be careful. This is the department's crayons and the elementary folks.
We also got a full sheet of paper here.
Elementary folks can get that.
That was like perfect timing.
If you want to participate in this too, you're welcome to if you wish. All right.
More than see people can do already put two together.
It's just actually a square sheet of paper there.
Yeah.
Kind of looks that.
That's right. This one here. Okay.
From the other box. Yeah, it's really responsible with my friends.
What is that?
I can work with the
Oh, yeah, something, or something.
So if we have time, we'll do 2 different exercises, and that will be one. And where did the professor go? You have your drawing paper and crayons? Is this thing on over here?
Yes, it is.
Good God, I'm on camera. All of you will be soon too. Exercise 1. If the Holocaust was, I'm going to read 5 different things. I'll repeat it a couple of times. I can put it on the blackboard if that will help too. What would it be for you? And that's all I'm going to say. If the Holocaust was a building, if the Holocaust was an article of clothing, if the Holocaust was an animal, if the Holocaust was weather, as in atmospheric weather, if the Holocaust was a last meal. Shall I write these down? There. Is that for this?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, what have we got? No one's going to be graded on how well you draw or how badly you draw or anything like that. There's no, it's not about art. It's about feeling and mood and all that stuff. So we'll see how we do in 10 minutes here.
So do you want one of those?
One of those. Choose one of those. Sorry. Bad instruction here. If the Holocaust was, choose one of these 5 kind of topic subject choices. How would it be for you? How would you depict it, in other words? This is a good group, because almost everyone is drawing already. Those of you still contemplating, as I read my notes here from last year, use the crayons, keeping in mind how you feel right now, especially after looking at my art. Draw a response. Don't worry about perspective. Don't worry about how well you draw, how badly you think you draw. Try and focus on putting how you feel onto the paper in one of these topics.
Anybody want more crayons? Crayons? Go for that color. Five more minutes. How do I take the camera off the tripod?
That's a luck. We ask a student, but let's turn it off first.
Okay. What's it plugged into?
Okay, so let's see, are we,
Doesn't it work independently of being plugged into a?
it can, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, is this off now, or is it still on?
It's on.
It's on? So let's just take the power off.
There should be a red button. that
Press the
says
red button.
record.
That's the red.
Okay. We're done. So, what we do is we'll go around in a circle, and you could, wonder if we should actually get a bit closer. Some of the drawings are lighter, some of them darker, so everyone can see, or maybe you can get up, or I can hold it and walk around and show everybody. Who would like to start, and then we'll just work one way or the other from there.
I'll go ahead and go first.
All right.
Well, to me, if anyone can tell what this is on their own, I decided to choose the building. It is a house on fire, because a house on fire, I think, is kind of symbolic of a tragedy. You know, if that happened to someone, like, that would probably deeply affect them. You know, even though you can probably replace a lot of material things, unlike the Holocaust. But I think the Holocaust is a tragedy, and this is symbolic of that. Very nice.
Anyone have any? Thank you. Thoughts? Comments? Any? It'd be great if people got participatory with questions about what you did and why, anything like that.
Other people in the house? Not that we can see. We really get that far.
Out of those choices, why did you pick a building to do?
I thought all the choices were kind of hard because it's very stretch of my imagination, and I just thought I could convey that the easiest on paper.
I have a question for you then. Because this is a learning exercise for me, and workshops and classes I do tend to evolve and change, especially to meet the needs of students, student teachers, teachers, and so on. You thought the topics are hard. Are there other topics that you would recommend I might do instead, or choices to offer? Oh, okay. Nothing comes to immediate mind?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Next.
Okay, great.
These two.
would be like 9/11 with the Twin Towers, like the before and after, kind of when I don't know, when I think of the Holocaust, I think of like ashes and destruction and lives lost and things like that. So that I'm relating it to America. That was kind of what I equated it with. So here it's like blue and happy and nice light texture, and then over here it's like gray and red, blood, death kind of theme, and a lot like darker, angrier texture.
And the diagonal there? That you have in the middle, splitting the
just
two
kind
sides of the
separations,
composition?
like before and after, kind of.
Uh-huh. Anyone care to comment or anything else? Thank you. Would you like to go next?
Sure, I'll go. Apologize for my drawing skills in advance, but it's actually supposed to be a jaguar.
A jaguar?
A jaguar.
Uh-huh.
My mind is actually on the tropics. I've been doing a lot of reading. I'm traveling to Costa Rica in May. And when I was reading about the jaguar, it's a very elusive animal, and it's very hidden and very mysterious. And so I kind of drew it hidden in the grass just because kind of fading into the background, because I feel like if we don't talk about the Holocaust and we don't keep remembering it, then it's going to kind of fade and not come into view of the public anymore. So that's just kind of what I thought of.
Thank you. Anyone? Professor? Thank you. Sure.
Okay.
Great.
I did like a T-shirt, I guess, and my mind first went to that because I kind of thought of something, a white T-shirt, just something pure, something comfortable, and then I kind of made it like it was destroyed. There's holes and it's kind of tattered and gray, and kind of that's the representation of all the destruction and the horror and the death and everything. And I chose to put it on clothespins and like waving, kind of like a hope thing, like it's just out there lonely, but it's kind of a symbol of still going on and despite the destruction. And so I was gonna
Question.
say, it looks like the inside the tatters, it looks like flames coming out of it. Yeah, kind of that's where I was going with it, and I did the yellow kind of because yellow is like a hopeful color to me. So yeah.
Good. Thanks.
This is mine. It's a building. I don't know how, but it is. I didn't really try to make anything. I just started scribbling. I kind of just like had the whole class in mind and was just scribbling. So that's it.
And why did you choose a building?
Probably because I started thinking we had to do all of them. So I started at the top of the list.
Uh-huh.
So,
Mhm. So, can you hold that up again? Thanks. Because you have a building on a landscape in one end of the composition there. And just wondering if anything else comes to mind aside from you saying that you were scribbling.
well, I don't know, a lot of it was kind of aggressive. And the colors are obviously dark, although I wanted like contrast in there. And I guess this is like, you know, it's kind of going out from itself, like maybe it's kind of like something like that, like can't be contained kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what I was thinking subconsciously.
Aggression is an interesting word, or saying aggressive, because it has a strong kind of emotional connotation to it. So makes me wonder if perhaps the subject matter, you know, of the exhibit and the whole topic, you know, makes you angry.
I'm really
Yeah.
tired, that might be funny.
Okay, that's understandable. But it's a very difficult and down type of subject, talking about the Holocaust,
Yeah.
and that type of event. Thanks. Anyone have any comments? slide for me? That one? Yes.
I also did the building. I kind of just thought of one like a more like rundown area, which made me think of like a taller building, like lots of people crammed into it because lots of people were involved in the Holocaust, and I didn't know how to portray like bleakness or whatever, so I drew a cloud. But then like I tried to use broken windows, and I decided to make everyone broken because I thought like everybody involved like was broken in one way or another, you know, like they were broken bodies and broken souls, so that's why I decided to break all of the windows in here.
Are there people portrayed in there too?
No, I
No,
couldn't, my
Broken
crayons
windows.
aren't sharp enough.
Hmm.
But, and then I made the fire exit the only way out because I figure, I mean, it's a difficult way to escape, and you couldn't escape the Holocaust, so
Mhm.
that's my.
Good. Anyone? Okay, thanks.
I did the building too. But this building actually exists, and the reason is my grandmother's family came from Nazi Germany. They fled first to London and then to the United States. But there's like a farm around where I live, and there's a chapel and everything there. And when my grandmother was a younger girl, around 15 years old, is when she came over. And then this farm took her in, and I don't know, it was ironic because they weren't even practicing Jews, and so the fact that this chapel came and took her in too, I thought was significant, so I don't know, that's what I think.
That was in the U.S.
Yeah.
where they came to. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. It's my chapel.
Uh-huh. Thanks. Anyone?
It's like really cheerful.
Well, because I wanted there to be like a hope, because that's what it represented for
Their
children to
survival.
figure out.
Uh-huh.
So,
Hmm. Good. Okay.
I did building also, and one of the things that came to my mind first were like the gas chambers that they had. So I kind of just had like it too fenced in with the barbed wire because they were like confined in one area, and there's no windows, or there's only one door and no windows. And the Star of David they use as like propaganda and stuff to maybe give them hope that, you know, they might get out. But once you get into the gas chambers, there was no way out, and that's what kind of symbolized with that. It's kind of like dark, so that's what it kind of means to me.
Good.
Yeah, I did the World Trade Towers as well. They're two buildings. They're blue, and they kind of stood out from the rest. And it's like this one's hollow now because I guess it's collapsed, and this one's smoking and in flames and slowly going down. And it kind of shows the resistance that was put up. Yet in the end, the fate was inevitable because of what the Nazis put them through. So.
Good. Thanks.
I did a crematorium also. When you think of buildings, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I thought it was important to show the gas coming down, the fact that there are people inside, men and women being affected. I thought the symbol of an X just for negativity, that's just a symbol of no, was important. And
Yeah.
then, in addition to the gas, you have the steam coming up from outside the crematorium. There are many people in neighboring areas who used to argue that they didn't know, that they had no idea what was happening in the camps, but that wasn't true. They had to have known. They knew because of the gas, the steam coming out. They knew because of
Ashes.
the ashes. They knew because of the smell, the stench. And
Can
so
you-
any pictorial drawing to me would be important to show that this was not simply limited to the building, but it was all over.
Thanks. Can you turn that way so the folks over there can see? Thanks.
Not terribly proud of the artistic merit of this.
It's the sentiment we're looking at here. Don't worry about it. Good. Thanks.
I hate tornado. It just makes me think of destruction and chaos and what it would be like to just be dislocated and all of that. So behind the tornado, there's black and dark and scary, and then everything that it's going toward.
We're good.
I wasn't looking at hers or anything, but I also did weather. You can kind of hold it any way you like. But basically, represented, it just has like all the chaos going on around it. But then you know you just gotta have that kind of hope whenever you look at really dark negative things. So there's a little cloud all by itself in the middle, nice and blue. So.
Good.
I chose a piece of clothing, and for me, it's a wig. When we were asked to draw an article of clothing in relation to the Holocaust, the first thing that came to mind was the worst experience of my life, which I know is nowhere near the Holocaust. But I had cancer when I was 10, and so I lost all of my hair. And I know that it was a common practice during the Holocaust for the people's heads to be shaved before they were in the camps or killed, things like that. And so I just thought of the whole dehumanizing aspect of it, and I felt subhuman when I had no hair, so I thought that this not only symbolized the things they lost, but it could also be restorative, and that you can put this on. So that's what I tried to do.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I also drew somewhat of a storm. I have the same ideas as Kate and Jack about storms,
Hold on a sec.
storms
Thanks.
being scary and destructive, and that's just what I think about when I think about the Holocaust.
This is a building. You can't tell. Under there is a building with no doors or windows or anything. It's just a confined space, and then there's fencing and red barbed wire, and then there's a whole black and gray kind of, I guess, despair and just kind of, you can't really tell what's going on because it was very, one of those types of periods where you wouldn't really want to be able to remember it, so it's kind of one of those like restored memory pictures, and then there's a blurred Star of David.
Good, thanks. So that's everyone, right? Yeah. So I know everyone's tired. Everyone's probably going home from here, right? And it's 10:02. We're early, so we won't do the second exercise. But I'd love to hear any thoughts, critiques, suggestions, ideas on the exercise and what you thought of it. If you thought it worked, if it didn't work, what you might do otherwise. Would you want to do this with your students when you're teaching in a year or two? This is a good question from my perspective. Would you want to do this with other classes, for example? Or what would you change? Anything? Anybody? Yes.